Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where investors with a special emphasis on couples begin, continue, and deepen their journey to financial freedom together using the powerful vehicle of real estate investing to do it. And today we have a very special type of show on for you. We have Alicia Jarrett and Matt Barton on the show. How are you guys?
Hi, great. Thank you. Thanks for having us on, guys.
Absolutely. So, Alicia, if you don't mind me calling you AJ, as you like to be referred.
For it. Yep, I say that I always have the kind of name that no one ever gets right. So AJ is much easier.
Perfect. So AJ, Matt, why don't you guys tell the audience a little bit about what you do and individually, and then maybe together, and we'll go from there.
Oh, sure. So as your listeners can probably tell, Derek and Sophie, we are Aussies. So we're currently speaking to you from the future. As we said to you guys before, it's the 20th of November over here. Life is good. It's all going to be fine.
Awesome.
A little bit about my background. So I actually have a background in human resources, leadership consulting, and organizational development. And about a decade ago, more than a decade ago now, I had my own private practice in that, where I would go into organizations and talk about people and leadership and things like that. And I loved it. But there was one thing, and when Matt tells you his story as well, there was one thing in our life that was always holding us back, and that's we were always exchanging our time for money, and that limited our freedom on a whole range of things. So about 5 years ago now, we were both looking at, what can we do for our lives and our businesses that would give us more freedom and more opportunity. And we were just starting to explore that conversation. And I think the premise for it was, wouldn't it be awesome? Because we love to travel. Excuse if you can hear our cat in the background. But we thought, wouldn't it be awesome if we could do business anywhere as long as we had a laptop and a phone? That was our goal. So we just started to think about that. And it's funny because being that I do speaking for a living, I love seeing other people speak. So I went along to over here, it's called the National Achievers Congress, where lots of different speakers from around the world come and talk about their businesses and do a keynote. And it was really interesting. And one guy in particular, whose name I cannot remember because this was going back 5 odd years ago, but it was when everybody was in the fix and flip craziness of life. And he had a keynote talk about doing houses in the US. And I was like, sounds really interesting. So I went to the back of the room and signed us up for a course. And I came home, I'm like, babe, I've just signed us up to do a course on how to do real estate investing in the US. He's like, you've done what?
I thought it sounded like a scam.
Yeah. So being the healthy skeptic in our relationship, he's like, all right, babe, I'll go with you. And if we get to lunchtime, because this was like a 2-day, was it 2 or 3 days? Three. Yeah, if we get to lunchtime on day one and this is a scam and this is awful, I'm out of there. And I was like, cool, that's fine. We get to lunch on day one, more than 5 years ago now. And I turned to him like, what did you think? And what did you say?
I said it was amazing.
Yeah. And that the rest is history. And here we are 5 years later. We've now got 4 businesses in the US and a big team that sits behind us all. There's like more than 13 people across the whole team, and we've been doing business together ever since. So that's the story. But my background's more in the people side of things. So in our business now, I focus more on people and ops and leadership and customers. And Matt's more, I'll get Matt to talk more about his expertise and where he does.
So my background's with transition and transformation in enterprises. So taking companies, IT and business, and outsourcing and insourcing and anything to do with IT. So I've worked for some pretty big companies. So part of my approach to a business is like a vision, data, systems, tools, processes, and then people last, because normally from my experience, people are always the ones that are causing the issues. So
humans.
Humans cause issues. So I'm on the flip side, but that's not including customers. That's just from an operational, perspective. So once I got excited about, my work. Sorry, I'm getting attacked by the cat. My work over there. I just could see the opportunity in order to deliver these kind of same processes and experiences, but for like a smaller business, if that makes sense. So yeah, we're we kind of fit in. We tackle problems from a different perspective, and then we now work full time with each other, and it's taken us a while to work out
to find our groove.
But we're into our groove, because nothing's ever perfect, but everything can be worked on. So, which is cool.
Exactly. Well, awesome. Thank you guys for your background. And just to clarify too, you guys are not married yet. You guys are.
You put a ring on it, but I love how Sophie claps. We're like, we like our bling. And I guess we're not in a huge hurry to talk about marriage. We have talked about it, but since COVID and everything, it's like, life is good, we're good, everything's good. It's not going to change anything. We've been together for quite some time, and it's like, life is good. Let's just stay as is.
Excellent.
Like, I'm happy.
Well, my theory is no one ever complains about the fiance. But you hear a lot of men complain about their wives. So
hey, that's actually true. I never thought of that.
That's right. No one ever complains about the fiance. I love it. All right. So you guys, thanks for making the intro. So let's talk about each other's businesses here and how you guys are able to work together in this dynamic. Because even though you guys aren't married, I can sense that there's a lot of crossover. You guys have talents that can help each other out in each other's businesses. So maybe can we start at the beginning as to how this was all starting? How did you guys discover that you had a synergy, that you could be working together on this?
Yeah. Well, I'll actually answer that first of all from the negative, and that is to start out with, it was really difficult to find our synergy, because when you've got two very strong personalities like us as well, it's like, we both wanted to be driving different things at different time, and Matt's the ideas guy that would come up with stuff, and I'm more about, well, hang on, we haven't finished that thing before we move on to the next thing. So we really found in the beginning that there was this push and pull of our energies of what we're focusing on and why. And also because in the beginning as well, for those people listening, Matt still had a job at that time. I still had my own consulting business. So we were trying to build something up at the same time that we were still trying to manage other things. And I'm sure most of our friends and family were looking at us like, you guys are a little crazy, but we're okay with crazy. So to begin with, I'll really admit that it was difficult to find our group. And there was lots of butting heads every now and then of, is that your job or my job? Like, if something didn't get done, it was easy to point the finger and go, well, you should have done that, or I should have done that, or vice versa. And I think that that's normal. Now that I've spoken to a lot of couples in business, I think it's really normal to go through those almost teething phases of, what is your role? What do you each bring to each other? And how do you create a space where the other person can naturally take the lead on things? So that took us a while to sort that out, particularly as well. And I'll get you to talk about this, but our businesses have morphed so much from when we started to where we are now, haven't they?
Yeah, well, not in my head. They've still got the same direction. It's just
they've grown.
Yeah, they've grown and they've pivoted. You know what I mean? So some pains that you think are customers' pains aren't necessarily those pains. So you have to adapt to what your customers telling you. And we look at it. We're very customer focused. So customer for us. So even though it's real estate, it's still, our customers are our buyers and sellers. So, it's just a good way of looking at people, because at the end of the day, even though it's a real estate investing business, realistically, it is managing relationship business.
Yeah.
Because unless your customers or your buyers and sellers are like you, or you've got a relationship with them, you can't expect for them to, contribute towards what you want, etc. So just maintaining those relationships are hard. At the same time, trying to maintain our own relationship, which is also sometimes hard, because work can be emotional when things aren't going right. So you have to know how to separate the work emotions and the personal emotions. So it is a juggling act. But it's worth it if you get it right.
Yeah, I would say I definitely would agree with you both on this. And AJ, when you were talking about how it wasn't easy from the beginning, and you said that you were butting heads and maybe stepping on each other's toes just a little bit, I would like to point out the fact that you guys were talking, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, even though you were butting heads and you guys were like, at least you weren't at a point where you were replicating work, or you were doing the work twice in different ways. And then finding out after the fact.
That happened, did it? It would always be like, okay, we've got this problem. Let's not go into blame mode, because that's very easy, I think, when you're in business together, to go into blame mode of, why wasn't that done right? Or And it's not the default position that you should start with, because then it's a downhill spiral from there. But we very much started with, okay, that didn't get done. Let's talk a little bit about why and what systems, again, from Matt's expertise, what systems or processes do we now need to put in place to do that? And then how do I enable our team to run it? So very naturally over time, I think through coming across problems, and the way that we both solve problems is very different, but that's enabled us to find our groove then with the solutions that we're putting in place. You know, Matt, technology, systems, processes, me, people, leadership, customers. You know, I love being out in front talking to people. I could talk underwater. I used to talk for a living. So we very naturally found our own groove based upon our skill sets. And a lot of that came through when we had to face problems and solve problems, and then think about the different solutions that we would both bring to it. And a lot of that as well, guys, I think comes to listening. Like, there was often times that I would want to put a solution across, or Matt would, and because we speak different languages, not just our technical language, but equally, you know, our love language to a degree, and the way that we communicate, it was making sure that we were both patient enough to have the other person be heard. And if we didn't understand, making sure that we didn't understand. And there's one thing I'll say, and this is a tough one to admit, but Matt is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. His brain is just off the charts. And there'd be often times where he'd be explaining things, and I have a habit that I now know of, where he'll be explaining stuff and I'm like, yep, yeah, got that, yep. And in my brain, I'm still like, no, I'm still processing that. I'm not too sure what that means yet. So, you know, I would often be outwardly saying yes about things, and he thinks I've got it, and then I'm still walking away processing it. And we found that was a big thing for us in our work relationship as well, that for me to be able to catch up with his thinking takes a bit of time. And so that's one thing we've gotten better at, is when he does have an idea now, that we sit down and he's like, all right, I've got this idea. And I say, take me through your thinking. How did you get to it, first of all? And walk me through so that I'm at the same pace you are. And I've also learned to stop just nodding and saying yes, and getting better at admitting, I don't understand, you've lost me.
Yeah, that comprehension is vital. Like, you know, being honest with what you know and what you don't know, and admitting it, because like, you can only grow if you admit that you don't know something. You know, you do fumble. Like in business, there's always new little things that come up and you have to just push through them. But being honest on what you're good and what you're not good at, like, just saves a whole lot of stress.
Whole lot of pain later on.
A whole lot of pain. And it's hard for people to go, I'm not good at this, you know, but anything you're not good at, you can improve. So,
but not only that, Matt and AJ, I think you guys have figured out what works for you, because that's what I wanted to acknowledge also, because, you know, there was a lot of action and correction that you guys had taken part in after you just identifying that one example pattern of just agreeing with what Matt's saying and then just nodding your head and then walking away. And then you both, like, Matt thinking that we're all good and you're like, I don't know. And then you had to change your behavior, both of you. There had to be a conversation where Matt's like, okay, we're about to implement a new process, or we're going to do something new with the business. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready to focus and pay attention. And that is 180-degree shift, right? In both your behavior and his, because that's the best way that you're going to work together, is to make that compromise. The only way you're going to find that out is by having the honest communication and saying, look, I don't quite get these sometimes. And so we need to fix this, right?
Yeah.
And then having that non-critical approach to it, to say, hey, I just want to get this done right. And I don't want to,
That's right.
So
correct.
Yeah, because I think not being honest with yourself or with each other causes even more anguish if you don't, you know, tackle the problem like then and there.
Yeah.
Because like we said, you're under stress, and, you know, little things get to you at the end of the day, and you think everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, and then they're not, and you're like, oh, it feels like a waste. But yeah, so having those honest conversations and being vulnerable, not going, oh, well, because I don't know this, it doesn't mean that I'm not as smart or anything. It's just I wasn't thinking about that.
Yeah,
you know what
wasn't at the same stage that you were.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that we've also learned along the way is about each other's time and boundaries, because I'm one of these people that my brain works when I'm really like, I'm in the zone on something, I want to get something done. And Matt's a very much an outward thinker. Hey, I've just got this great idea. I've just come up with this. I just saw this new technology, like what you showed us before. Yeah. And often he'll break my pattern, and we've had to get good at going, is now a good time? Like, I've got an idea, I need to talk about something. So now we ask each other permission, and we've been doing this for a while. You know, is now a good time? Are you free? Because often he'd wander in and I'd be like, babe, I'm in the middle of something and I can't give you my full attention. And that would cause frustration. I just saw you two look at each other. Like, that sounds familiar.
Everything. So AJ, Matt, everything that you guys have said, it's hitting home so much, so hard, because Derek is a very analytical, he's a spreadsheet guy, and I tend to be more visionary. And so getting on that same page, and like, you know, like you were talking about earlier, making sure there's a delineation between your strengths and your boundaries, but at the same time incorporating that common vision for the future. Yeah. And so can you guys walk us through maybe the conversation of, okay, well, you know, we're different in this way, but we have this common vision. How do you balance the two, especially when you're running multiple businesses and you're juggling a super busy day?
Yeah. And I think it's difficult because I'm also right and left brain. So I've already thought about it before we've even had a conversation about it. So I've got it mapped out in my head what 5 years look like.
Yep.
And I'm still in today, getting through today, and he's like, I'm 5 years away.
So most stuff, I know sometimes it sounds like a bit crazy. I've got an idea, but it's just backing up incorporating it into my vision. So it is a hard conversation. So I'm not quite sure.
I think we're still navigating that.
Yeah, we are navigating it. But it's come back to me about that timing and respect for each other's time as well. Like understanding that Alicia likes to work a particular way and getting distracted is going to break the way she works. So by me acknowledging that, it kind of helps us. And then when she's having a cup of tea or a piece of toast, then I'm like bombarded with 100 ideas, which then she probably goes back to the office and closes the door.
It is, but I think, Sophie, to your point, and I'm 100% behind what Matt's just said there, and I think we're really getting a groove with each other's space around that. But finding the right time to talk about the right things is really critical as well. So we will have time sometimes mapped out where we call it GSD, which is just get stuff done time, because I'm customer facing, Matt's working with our support team and biz systems, and that sometimes we just need time with each other to action different things to keep our business moving forward. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, but being really planned with that time is one thing. But also I think when it comes to that thinking ahead, Matt will often, he is very visionary, and it will be like, I've thought about the next phase for our business, and my first reaction to that is often one of freaking out, because I'm worried that we haven't actually finished what we're already working on. And I find that funny now too. We often laugh about it internally, because I'm like, calm down, AJ, we're moving forward, And I think sometimes as a couple, and we've done this regularly, you need to sit down and think about how far you've come. Because what I love about Matt and my relationship and working together, even though we've had our ups and our downs and our goods and our bads, we have learned so much, not just from each other, but we've grown so much in our business. We started just with an idea of doing a couple of fix and flips in Florida and doing some houses. We've now gone from there into, we have a land business with 3 full-time customer service people. We have a data business that's all about real estate data. We have a real estate marketing company that's got a team of 9 in it. We're about to launch another product that's data-driven for doing neighbor letters. So, pushing each other's boundaries and pushing each other's thought processes, mainly him pushing mine, because he's the visionary that's like, how about we do this? And my first thought's always like, how about we not? And we just stay safe. But then as soon as he explains it and gets me excited about it, and I think that's the thing, I've got to think about it differently and go, yeah, that now sounds pretty cool. Yeah, okay, I'm onto that. Yeah, okay, that sounds great. And by the time I get to the same stage as him, it's like, okay, we're on, let's go. But needing to walk each other through those thought processes, because our brains are very different, has been something critical as well. Sophie, to come back to your question.
Yeah, beautiful. I think a couple of things I wanted to say to this. Have you two read the book or seen the book, The Gap and the Gain?
No.
Okay. So what really got me, what reminded me what you were talking about with this is that, Dan Sullivan in this book, he explains that, and I apologize to my listeners who have heard me recommend this book a couple of times already in a previous podcast, but I feel like I just have to add this value because it's so applicable here. There's two ways to think about setting goals. One is to think of the gap, which is what you're missing, what you're lacking. Like, let's say your goal is to have, 1,000 units under contract or 1,000 units under management or something like that, right? Or a number or something. And you look at where you are versus where you want to be, and there's that gap there, right? It's scarcity.
Yep.
You're basically looking at what you're lacking in order to get to where you want to gain, where you want to be. So instead, what these two incredible authors recommend is that you look at where you've been from where you've come from, and look at that gain and think always from that point of view instead of thinking from the point of lack. Because when you're doing that, then you're going to be able to set goals that are stretch, but also not demotivating because they're too big, right? And you're always living in a happiness sort of place, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that, Derek. And it's funny you say that, because if I think about the numbers that Matt and I talk about now, like first house we ever did, I think we bought it for about 17,000 or something, didn't we? And it was a triplex. We ended up fixing it up, putting tenants in it, sold it for 3 or 4 times the price, and it was great. It was fun. But we were talking like in the tens of thousands then. We're now talking in the multiples of millions with our goals now, and it doesn't scare me anymore. Whereas it used to be like, oh, okay, that's really scary because we've never talked those numbers. But now it's like, we talk about big goals and big dreams, and they're no longer scary. And I think you're exactly right, because now we've got so much experience of, well, look at what we've done already over a short space of time. And I'm so proud of where we've gotten to, even though we've still got so much more that we want to do, and so many more places that we want to explore. I'm really proud of what we've done so far, and how we've survived the hard stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. But I like where you're coming from. Yeah, because I've come from the mindset. I don't believe, well, scarcity is just an excuse for me. So, you got to make big goals, but they have to be achievable. And like, it's like that saying, eating, how would you eat an elephant in bite size? That's probably going to offend some vegans, but how do you eat a 10-ton carrot in, one bite at a time? So yeah, it's just prioritizing and then communicating what they are and knowing how to communicate what they are. So yeah, it's a hard thing, and making time, I suppose, is the other thing as well, because in businesses you're always like, I'm too busy for that, and another thing I don't like hearing is, I'm too busy, so let's make time, so we can grow together and get on the same page. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, it gets to 3 weeks and you haven't talked about it, and then you start resenting each other, for not taking things that you believe are serious, which someone else might not necessarily believe is serious, but things that have to be talked about. So actually scheduling time to do that, and whether it's good or bad, right? So yeah, I think that's probably the key, is the communication for a couple, no matter whether it's work or a normal relationship or anything, or with your customers, whether it's going good or bad. When you're having a bad real estate deal, a lot of times we hear, sellers are pulling out from a deal, and we're like, well, have you been talking to them on a weekly basis? And they're like, oh, we sent them an email a month ago. And it's like, well, I wouldn't, if I'm not hearing from you, I don't know that something's happening, even if something's not happening. So yeah, that communication is a big key in relationships.
Yes,
absolutely, across the board. And so much wisdom there. And going back to, speaking of eating elephants, you guys, so for investors living in the US, it takes them forever to even get started investing in the US. But for both of you living in Australia, invest in making the decision to invest in the US, that is a huge elephant. Can you kind of walk us through that whole process and how you built all of that up?
I think it helps because I'm used to dealing with big numbers and just getting things done. And that's one of our mottos, is done is better than not done. So the amount of people that just procrastinate on doing something, but there's always you're always going to get a learning, you know what I mean? So a lot of these real estate investors, mentors, they teach you the basics, but that's only part of it. Like the lessons that you've got to learn from, small failures is from doing, and they're not, nothing that we're doing is life threatening. It's not like we're doing, how to become a brain surgeon, there's no real, other than maybe losing some money, but if you do the due diligence and everything, you're going to probably break out even anyway. So, you know, and then you get that from an experience. A few deals we've broken even on, maybe one, we might have lost a couple of thousand, but it was nothing major. And
there was a learning in it too.
Yeah,
it was like, okay, what do we learn from that and how do we implement? But to come back to the start, Sophie, as well, I think you got.
I did a big one. I did a big boo-boo in the beginning.
Yeah. So there was a big boo-boo in the beginning, but it's really funny because we laugh about it now. Keeping that motto of done is better than not done. So where we started was literally when we were doing our training, we jumped on the phone to realtors in the US and said, hey, we're investors from Australia. We are going to be doing business in the US. Help us get started. The only realtor that called us back, Michael Cassidy, we love you. He's still on our team today. And from there, it was how do we get our boots on the ground team going? So from him, we got introductions to title companies, probate attorneys, you know, other realtors that he has in his network. We went over and spent some time with him and actually got to know the areas that we wanted to invest in to begin with, and just started those boots on the ground relationships. And then when we got back from that, and this is when we were first doing houses, when we got back from that, we thought, okay, we've done a couple of houses now. That was lots of fun. And some of them went well. Some of them were like, oh, so stressful. We also stopped and looked at our strategy and thought, I don't think houses is for us anymore. So what other asset classes can we do? And it was land. And so we had to learn all over again about how to do a whole new asset class and how to explore that. And the boo-boo that Matt refers to is the whole done is better than not done. We were like, right, let's get our list, let's mail it, let's just go. And that from the moment we get that first phone call, that's going to be when the learning really kicks in and we can just go for it, because you only learn by really doing. And we sent out that first mailer, nothing. We're about 2 weeks in and it's like, God, we've got no phone calls. What is happening? This is crazy. Like everybody else that we see gets phone calls. Why aren't we getting any phone calls? And then we got a phone call from this poor woman, and her first words to me were, have you stolen my identity? And we're like, what? Who are you? What's this all about? And so what Matt had done, and again, we can laugh about it now because we'd only sent out a couple of thousand mailers. Our phone number, he got 2 numbers around the wrong way. So she was getting all of our phone calls. And what was really gorgeous in the end, though, she was so lovely. And again, this all comes back to how you deal with problems and think about solutions. I was so apologetic, and I'm really great on the phone with people. That's one of my superpowers is I can sell ice to Eskimos. And I had a really great conversation with her. And funnily enough, she worked in sales. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And so I said, why don't we do this? Why don't you, for this mailer, and we promise we'll change the phone number for our future ones, but if you can take all our phone calls for us and just on a daily basis, just email me who's called through and I'll take it from there. And we'll meet you and make sure that you and your husband are looked after. And so we ended up sending them, beautiful restaurant voucher to their favorite restaurant and kept in touch with them. And she was just wonderful. And I guess it just goes to show that, you know, the simplest of things can lead to big mistakes, but it's how you recover from them.
So I've never got the phone number wrong again. But the funny thing as well, we got a 222 people rang out of the 2,000. So it wasn't just like a few, it was a lot of calls.
Wow. Oh my, that is an amazing story. I love it. Yeah, what a great way to turn that around.
Yeah. I think so. A lot of those, you know, you can't teach the things that don't happen. It's the same with building a house. You know, you can get the instructions on all the steps to build a house, but you can't give instructions on what to do when something goes wrong. And you can only learn that from experience, you know. So no matter what, you know, whatever the mentor is, you know, they can tell you what the best practices are, but you're going to hit, you know, hurdles all the time. And it's just having the grit to just deal with them and go through with it.
Yep.
You know, just tackle them. And like I said, none of them are normally life-threatening. So, you know, the worst that can happen is you send 2,000 letters out with the wrong phone number. So
that's incredible. Now I have a little bit more insight, Matt, as to why you said remove the human from the from the equation, right? That's really amazing. Very cool, you guys. So let's talk a little bit more about real estate and working together as a couple. Do you guys have, I mean, maybe we'll take this approach. you guys obviously have superpowers. We've kind of touched on them right now. And can you talk to us a little bit more about how you have been able to leverage them for your growth going forward, or how you plan to leverage them going forward for your growth? Obviously, I know, AJ, that your strength is customer facing and being able to speak and talk with folks. And then Matt, yours is building processes. And that right there is the definition of a power couple. So I want to see how you guys are going to be leveraging that to move forward in the future, what blueprints you have.
Yeah. Talk about firing me.
Yeah. So when the time's right, the first decision I'm making is firing Alicia. Not because I don't want to work with her, but just so she can do the things that she really is passionate about. Yeah. You're passionate about our business now. It took a while, but you really love it. But from a business perspective, is we got a motto, hiring the right person for the right role. So in order to do that is making sure you enable them with everything that right person needs to be successful. So that's, having the systems and processes in place to enable them. So you don't want to pay, $100 resource and then let them spend 30 minutes out of every hour, doing admin work. It's just not best use of their time. So how do you automate all of that? So from our perspective, it all starts with data. So good data in, good data out, and the knock-on effect that has, if it's bad quality, then all of a sudden everyone's, wasting all this administrative time, maintaining the systems. So really getting the data right, the processes and the systems to enable everyone. So we've got, that my view and vision is to just have that all automated, and then so I can enable people around us. And then also when you do, obviously go through sometimes trying to find the right person, but you're not actually letting all of that IP and that knowledge go with that person. So you own your business, you own your outcomes, and you can report on them at any particular time. So you can see what's working, what's not working, what you need to improve on, what you need to streamline, because it's never do it once and then, move on to the next thing. There's always small iterations.
Yeah.
But that's like any business.
Can I add to that though and say that, one of Matt's superpowers is creativity. So he's always coming up with ideas for systems and apps and stuff. He's a creator. So, if you think about the question with your growth, one of the things that you want to do when we get to that stage is to build more apps and ideas and systems and processes that actually enable people in the real estate investing business. Become a creator, build something, sell it. Create something, build it, sell it. That's what he does, and he does really, really well. And in terms of firing me, it has taken me a long time to get passionate about real estate in the US. I love the idea of it, but, moving out of my own consulting practice, doing leadership training and being in front of groups, and all of a sudden now just working virtually and working with my team, I now do love it. And, I love the fact that we've got such awesome businesses that help real estate investors, not just ourselves, but the marketing side as well. So when it comes to firing me, it's more, how do I find my space in the business of the things that I'm really passionate about, enabling people, consulting, doing leadership training, doing coaching, doing all of those things. So if we can get some more people in our business to run things, and we're hiring another resource in the next few weeks where I'll be able to hand off about another 30% of my role. So I can create the space to be able to step more into the stuff that I'm passionate about, because I think we both believe as well that when you're doing stuff that you're really passionate about, it doesn't feel like work, and it's a lot more fun. So that's probably the growth phase.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like a real estate business.
No.
Like a transaction, our commodity is real estate, but for me, it's about building better businesses. So it's fun in building. Because at the end of the day, buying and selling land's not very sexy. It's not. So, but building
but it's good
and making it automated and autonomous, and I haven't worked on bought or sold a deal for years, really.
Yeah.
But I've had my hand in, making everyone else enabled so they can buy and sell.
Yeah, so we've really got our land business. We've got our team now to the point that I have a meeting with them every day, But we've enabled them through good systems, good processes, and good training to really run our business for us. I probably speak to a seller or a buyer, I'm talking like 1 or 2 calls a month. That's it. So our real estate business almost runs for us. And I think if we can get all of our businesses to that stage where they're running for us, and we can then lift and elevate to our next level, then that's great. And again, looking back over the last 5 years, that's what we've done. Every time we've elevated and lifted up, it's because we've made something work under here.
Yeah, and we've got our team's been with us for a while, like because we do the marketing for quite a few other real estate investors, and I see them. You know, one of the common issues is them trying to maintain their like staff or their VAs, but once again it comes down to relationships. So even though Alicia is going to be outsourcing or getting other people to do her roles, she'll still keep that relationship with them to make sure they're on track. And we just report on the things that aren't being done rather than micromanage. So once again, and that's where the success of having these relationships, again, I think that's what the key theme of this show, like today's session is, it keeps everyone on track and being able to grow together, and open communication with each other.
And start traveling again now that COVID's over.
That's right. Yes. Thank goodness. So you guys have spoken a lot to processes, and I want to dig down just a little bit more on this, especially for someone who's maybe just starting out. So Matt, maybe this is for you. AJ, maybe this is for you as well. But what would you recommend for those investors in the United States who are looking for, houses or multifamily property, or maybe even land also? What type of steps would you recommend for really basic advice for building processes for someone that maybe doesn't think quite like you do, Matt, but wants to put something in place to automate? Where could they start?
Well, you can't automate unless you've got the processes. And one of the biggest things that I've found is getting what's in people's head out onto paper. So if I say, write me a 10 list of things that you do on a daily basis, everyone will be like, I don't know. But if you ask them the question and they interviewed themselves, go, okay, now walk me through what you're doing on a daily basis, and maybe do a selfie of yourself. Film yourself. Film yourself doing that process. They'll be able to do it the majority of the time without even thinking about it. So then you've got a recording, and you could use a service like Rev to transcribe that, and then all of a sudden you've got a document on how to do a process. So you need to really know how to do that yourself before you outsource that. Because one of the other things is a bit of a pet peeve with me is like the word growth and scale. Scaling your business. So if you say, I want to scale my business, and the first thing that you go to do is go hire a VA, you're not scaling your business, because scaling is about exponential growth. So scale is a form of growth. So if you're growing your business, you can throw resources at it. But if you want to scale your business, you need to look at, data process system tools and then the right people. So in order to do that, you need to be able to do the job yourself, film yourself doing the task, get it transcribed, create a document about it, be comfortable that you can do it, hand that document to someone else, watch them do it, and only when they're actually successful at it, then hand it over.
Yeah.
So it is a really simple process, but people get caught up on writing processes, but you don't have to write processes. You just got to demonstrate that you know how to do it. And then there's services, like I said, Rev, and even the new app that you showed me today that can easily, transcribe what your video is. And then boom, you've got a process that can be used by anyone in your team.
I'll even take that one step further. So when we first started out with our land business, we were using Google Sheets to run our business. Now, I'm not saying that that's the best thing to do, and I'm not saying it was hugely effective, but it worked. And it worked for that point in time. So I think if anybody is listening to this and they're thinking, well, what systems and processes do I need at any point in time? It's really starting to ask yourself, what works for me now, but already thinking ahead as to what am I going to need that's going to work for me in next month, the month after that. You see a lot of people that go out and spend a fortune on lots of different, CRMs, virtual assistants, different services that they use. And I think sometimes it's about asking yourself, what do I need at the different stages in my business? I'm doing the right things at the right time, because otherwise you end up spending all of your money on implementing all this stuff, and you're not probably even using it correctly as well. And in addition to that, I echo what Matt is saying, that before you even think about a system or a process or a person, you need to know what good looks like for that task or that outcome. So everything in our business, we've both done those tasks before we even thought about a system or a process or a person, even down to our call scripts, like how my team answers the phone and what they do and what they say and how they answer the questions. I wrote all that because I did it first. So if you're thinking about any asset class at all, get out there and put yourself out there and do the stuff that needs to be done first before you then hire someone or implement something to do it for you.
Yeah, because and if you don't do that, you're susceptible to someone great coming in and then creating a new process and then just leaving, and then you've got a gap that you need to fill, and then you need to start all over again. So, any successful business that we've been looking lately, the people that we deal with are successful versus the people, that are probably more hobbyists, is you take that time to really know how to do it first yourself. And you don't need to become an expert in it, but you at least need to know how it works from start to finish. So.
Yeah, and then I think that also comes back to data. If you're setting up things like reports and through your CRM or even through a Google Sheet, like doesn't matter what it is, if you're setting up reports so you can manage your KPIs and things like that, how are you going to know what you're measuring unless you've done it yourself? So yeah, some of those basics, guys, is what I'd come back to your question there, Derek.
Exactly. And if you outsource the process, the result may be unintended, because you may end up with something that's irrelevant or forgets a variable, right? And so you have to do this yourself for at least a little bit of time to understand that even what you're measuring and what you're putting a process to is meaningful, right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
And saying that, all processes can be improved. So if you do hire an expert and they're going, hey, maybe it's better to do this, it's out of their head back into your control, and then you own the IP, and then, it's just an improvement. So it's a living, your business is a living document. You're not just doing it once, you're just refining it until you get really efficient at it, and then away you go from there.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's such really
advice.
Great practical advice for our listeners, especially our listeners who are just starting out, who have no idea where to even begin. Now, you said you started this journey about 5 years ago, correct?
Yep.
Now, what I've been hearing as you guys have been sharing is that there's an element of beautiful lifestyle design, especially with all these processes, especially with just everything that gets implemented at every stage of the process of your own lives. Now, what I want to ask is, fast forward 5 years, what's going on in your lives? Can you share how you're
5 years from now?
5 years from now.
5 years from now, we're living in Italy and our cat is with us, and we are doing business for a couple of hours a day, and then we're drinking wine with lunch and having a long afternoon just living life.
Lovely. That sounds lovely.
And then Alicia will be waking up, and what we'll actually be doing. No, we will be doing that. So, obviously we built this, and the reason why having full control on systems, processes, so you can work anywhere in the world, and having the right people, so you've got a team that you trust, obviously. But I'm envisaging that, I really want to continue and replicating what we're building, but do it for other people, and then start acquiring businesses to build out our own businesses. So, but the same thing is, coming up with these systems, tools, and processes, and then being able to replicate it for other people as well.
Yeah, and even though I joke about living in Italy, we do still very much have a goal of exploring more of the world. We're travelers at heart. Obviously with COVID, that's been difficult, but doing more exploration of the world. We've done deals on the ski slopes in France. We've done deals in a yacht in the middle of Croatia, sitting in the ocean. And I want to get back to us being able to do that. And it's not necessarily doing a deal. It's like running our business from anywhere. But here's the caveat for people listening. As an entrepreneur, you'll never not work hard. You might get it to the stage that, yes, you're doing a couple of hours a day, but there will be periods that you are working your butt off. And it's about the grind and making sure that you're up for that. And we've been up for it for a long time. We work damn hard. And I think our goal in 5 years is to maybe just lessen that off a little bit, Sophie, so we can enjoy the more of the lifestyle and the quality of things over the quantity of things.
Yeah, great answer.
Yeah. And we would love to join you in Italy in 5
years. Yes. That sounds great. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to start to ramp down here a little bit because we're coming up to about the time where we need to start to wind down. So what we like to do is we like to ask all of our guests the same 5 questions in our rapid round. And these questions are they're meant to be answered within a 30-second time span, and they're for each of you individually, unless the question implies that it's for you together. So maybe do you want to read them?
All right, guys. Okay. So first question is, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why? And we ask that it be outside of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the Bible, because we get those a lot.
I wouldn't say those 2 for me, but 30 seconds. Oh, that's a hard one.
Cocktails for Dummies.
I love that.
I can't really think at the moment. Like, I've got a pile of books like really high because one of the best things I did, like Andy Frisella, I read his book 75 Hard, so that's about mental toughness, and ever since then I started reading 10 pages of a book every day. But I take snippets, like I don't get inspired by total books. There's always like a key takeaway. So but I can't recall off the top of my head. So.
I've got 2 that I would say. I absolutely adore Brene Brown, and some of her books have really changed the way that I think about how I show up. But I think in the here and the now for our business, there's a book called Sell Like Crazy by Sabre Subi. And when we started doing marketing for other people, like, we don't have a background in marketing. And his stuff really got me to believe and think about marketing in a different way that really enabled me to go, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
So that was probably a life-changing one for us too. We used it a lot.
Yeah, we used that a lot. Yeah, because at the end of the day, well, we're probably going to go over our time limit, but all small business should own innovation, and marketing doesn't mean you have to do the marketing, but the message around the marketing, it should be yours. So yeah.
That's our next business. We'll do another podcast on that.
That book is about building systems, not just tactical stuff.
Love it. There's a book called Tribe of Mentors that has little snippets from each individual, like the same questions over and over again for a bunch of different people that Tim Ferriss wrote, which is really good. So
I love Tim Ferriss. 4-Hour Work Week. We love listening to that too. We're not there yet, but that was a good one.
Yes. Go for it. Okay, next question is, if people wanted to emulate your success, what is the first actionable thing that they could do to follow in your footsteps?
I'm going to say, go and get some education. Whatever it is that you're thinking of doing, really research a good, because there's some out there that aren't so good, a really good educator in the space that is getting the results that you want, and go and learn from them. They'll only give you so much though. Here's the thing, because people will give you what works for them, but then you've got to work out what works for you and implement that. So go and get some knowledge and some training would be my advice.
And don't necessarily get caught up in the upsell, because you can end up spending 50 grand on education when you probably can, spend 10 and spend 40 on marketing and then learn yourself. There's no such thing as a secret sauce in mine. It's the secret sauce is doing the grind yourself, and learning yourself.
So good.
Yeah, that's excellent. Next question is, what small thing do most people not know about you?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think most people won't know about us, and you saw him before. He's asleep here next to me, but we got a cat during lockdown over here. His name is Ziggy. And we've had him 5 months now. He has turned us to mush. Like, here we are, these 2 strong personalities. We're both professionals, we're go-getters, and as soon as this cat comes in, we're like, oh, we are ridiculous. So the little thing that people might not know about us is, on the outside we might be like, we go get, we do this, we do that, and then as soon as our cat, he's got us wrapped around his.
I must admit, because everyone knows what I'm good at, because I tell them, but one thing I hide is I do treat my cat like a baby sometimes. I even do a baby voice. So
I love that.
You're a little ridiculous with our fur baby who's just here next to us.
That's very cool.
That's awesome. And how do you like to unwind and restore your creative juices individually?
I'll got an answer again. Cocktails for Dummies. I love snow skiing and traveling really. We do it together, but
We haven't been able to
We
the
haven't
last
been
2
able to,
years.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
But for me, when it comes to unwinding, I do love to go to the gym and exercise as much as I can when I can, like making that a priority for my own physical and mental health. I love to go for a walk and put a podcast on and listen to something. But often it will be just about us, you know, when we are working long hours, it'll just be about us switching off to something that's good on Netflix and having a glass of wine together, or turning that off and just having a quick chat about our day together. But yeah, I think it is important to make sure that you've got those things about winding down and switching off. I don't think we've perfected it yet, though.
No, especially through, you know, COVID for the last couple of
Yeah.
years, it has been more about the grind. You know, there's like we've been using it as our excuse, not, you know, to relax, I suppose. But now that things have opened up again, you know, just socializing and enjoying going out for dinner and you know, having a good conversation with your phones off is and not talk about work, which is hard when you're so immersed in work.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
but
Excellent.
Absolutely. And last question is, what is your favorite vacation spot for each of you?
Oh, mine's going to be Italy, because I said it before. I've been to Italy a few times, and there's I'm not Italian, I'm not European, but there's something about Italy that always feels like home for me, and I just love the people and the lifestyle and the food and the culture. And so Italy, and second to that would be France. But
I love skiing, so you know, Maribel Monterey in the Tres Valley is like amazing. You know, I could live there, and the you know, chocolate croissants are amazing too.
They are. I can confirm that as well. Pretty good stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much, AJ, Matt, for joining us on the show. And before we end the show, why don't you guys explain to the listeners how they can find out more about what you have going on? I know you have lots of businesses, but we'll go ahead and list all of the links that you have in the show notes. So if you can,
I think the best one they can do is go to superchargedoffers.com. On there, they'll find 2 things that they can download for free. One of them is a business growth plan, because we see a lot of real estate investors starting out that don't have a strategy or a plan. So they can download that and start to plan out all the different components of their business and their marketing. The second on there is about the use of both online and offline marketing, and how doing those together can work for different asset classes. So superchargedoffers.com. They can call my team on 888-538-5478, or email us direct at Alicia, so ALICIA @superchargedoffers.com, or Matt is hello@superchargedoffers.com.
Yeah, and you also run like a Facebook group, Mastermind, international people just wanting to hear, right? So it's just a place that people can go and.
There's a land investing motivation mastermind group on Facebook that I help run for people that are outside of the US, and we've got people inside the US as well, who are doing different types of real estate investing and helping them out there as well.
Very nice. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show, and especially to you, Matt, for making the time to come on the show, and also to be willing to do that as well. I know.
Well done, babe.
Thank you. Very, very well done. And lots of value here. So you should consider going on more podcasts. That's just my thought.
Thank you so much, Derek and Sophie. Really, we've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it was really fun. And for you listeners out there who have listened all the way to the end of the show, we want to thank you as well. And please engage with us, like, comment, subscribe, and just engage with us. Tell us how we're doing and what things we're maybe missing, or what we can add to make the content more richer and more engaging for you, because we want to help everyone here escape their W-2 or corporate bondage if possible. And also, by you engaging with us, it helps push us up the algorithm, so we get more exposure, and we're able to introduce AJ and Matt to more individuals just like yourself. So thanks again for listening. Matt, AJ, thanks again so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. And this is Derek.
And this is Sophie.
We're signing off for the day. Take care, everyone.